All right. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we are in business from the West Coast to the East Coast with Angela McCullough in the building. Oh, this is going to be a good one. I'm telling you, this lady's got some spunk, some just beautiful essence about her. And I'm telling you right now, a very accomplished woman at that. You know, Angela, the key at the beginning of these, as I keep doing them, is to really set the tone for people when we get on this thing. So considering all your greatness, because I certainly believe that, right? I just you people are always like, man, you too much. You say too much about me. I'm like, this is true. But I really want to know, and I think people want to know sort of your story, right? The evolution of you, where you come from, you know, what that has transpired into. And then we'll start to have a lot more fun with what you give us. But tell us some of your stories, some of your background, you know, the journey to this point today, to get here, right here to the Always on the Grow podcast, because this is special. We had to work for this one, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. She made me work for this one.
Don't tell everybody all of that. Anyway, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me. You know, I tell you, we did have to work for it. I had to really think about that. I want to come on here. Do I have a story to tell? And the reality of it is, I know all of us has a story to tell, and every single person can learn from somebody else. But I still was just a little bit nervous, but I just said, hey, let me jump on here. So thanks for the invitation and for the opportunity. And the reality is, if something I happen to say connects with someone else, gives them some hope or some encouragement, then we've done a good thing. Mm-hmm. So,
amen.
So you say, you know, I have all this amazing story, and in some ways I'm, you know, just your next door neighbor type of person. I mean, and it began, I'm a native, proud Detroiter. And if you happen to follow me on social media, you'll recognize I rep the D, as we say, every place that I go. And I will tell you, growing up in Detroit, and my family certainly was instrumental, really, in my life. I think a lot of folks tend to think about Detroit and all they can remember is the rough years, right? The decline, the crime, and all that other kind of stuff. But that wasn't always Detroit. Detroit was, and today still is, a community rich, particularly for persons of color. There was like opportunities there. And so I kind of had that experience growing up in Detroit. And then I had wonderful grandparents who introduced me to another side of life. So I like to tell people that, you know, I'm a city girl with a country heart. I spent a lot of time in the country. And I think sort of those two, that dichotomy, if you will, gave me an interesting perspective on life, being able to maneuver through the city and understand what that's like, but also a great appreciation for sort of a different kind of life, a kind of laid back, you know, kind of a country at peace, connect with nature. And that still exists very much today for me. A lot of things I learned, I think, in that city, watching it, because I was coming along at the time where, you know, the city was really starting to decline. And I certainly had a mother and grandparents who would talk about the community, what was going on, and a lot of things that they really drove this idea and, you know, get your education, right? Be able to stand on your own 2 feet. And all of that tied in, or I would say all of that just really became foundational for me, having this belief that I pretty much could do anything that I set my mind to, or no doesn't really mean no. It just might mean no for now, or you got to kind of find, you know, another way to get there. So that drives a lot of who I am. And then along the way, I had like really great opportunities. You know, I am a veteran, spent time in the Air Force, which then set me up foundationally for my career. And I have had lots of opportunities career-wise, all because I was just like, no means no for now. And in some ways, I think I never think about myself literally as a trailblazer, but I realize that as a woman of color, that I've been in some spaces that other people have not been in, and And I've been trying to ensure that I am opening doors and helping others not be at the table, but like make their own table.
Mm.
And then, as you said, entrepreneurship on the side, all while, raising, having a family and just doing a whole lot of different things.
Yeah, like so. See, she paints a good picture there. So, I think when somebody, I just know that there's a lot. So when I grew up in a, I would say it's not a terrible area of Las Vegas, but it's not a good area. But I had a lot of friends of color. Believe it or not, I was, a lot of my early childhood friends were African American. Grew up rooted with these kids, hung around, did some fun stuff, did some bad stuff, and it's just interesting to see sort of the trajectory. And I think you're sort of giving hope to people, men and women. And it's never about like, hey, I'm like a mid brown guy, right? It's like a light brown versus a, different shade, I guess you could say. But what do you think from sort of like a family values system and sort of your upbringing, the things that were embedded into you that have helped you continue to march forward and reach these certain pillars in the Air Force, in your profession? Because now you're working for is it the Department of Aviation? Am I correct there? Is it
Federal Aviation
Federal
Administration.
FAA, right? There you go. I always laugh when I hear the FAA because there was a movie, Rush Hour, where Chris Tucker, I don't know if you ever saw it, he talked about the FAA going come and get you. Now it's just, throwing my little language out there. But he made that word, he made the FAA so funny. I got to find that clip. I'll send it to you on a side note.
Okay. All right.
But attitude wise and how you've been able to sort of overcome let's just say the stereotype, right? And win and show strength and vigor in this whole process of life. So what do you have to say about that and sort of attribute some of that stuff to? Because you're hungry, you're growing, you're entrepreneurial. We want more of that, right? So if you don't mind sharing some of that, that process,
Nope.
that'd be amazing.
I think that's a good question. I mean, foundationally, it was a Christian home. So there was certainly the getting up and the going to church, and it was the singing in the choir and being a junior nurse. And so there was this foundational of understanding a higher power, if you will. For me, it was and still is God, but that laid a foundation. And the reason why I think that's so important is because then you realize that it's just not solely about you. There's something greater that is out there. So there's that one deeply held belief connection to greater power, right? There was, because I had the dichotomy of both worlds, right? Of living in the city in a not predominantly, it was a Black neighborhood, but my time in the country, it was a all white neighborhood. And generally that community was a community of farmers. So these were individuals that had working farms. And if they didn't slaughter chickens and grow vegetables, in some cases, families did not eat. So we got that experience and got to know. And so I think that created some understanding or this value that people are people, and yet people can be different, and yet you can learn from one another. And even in the middle of the continued crisis of race relations, having that understanding at a young age, I think has made it much easier for me to be open to diverse perspectives. And again, to learn and grow. I think those things have been critical. I said it earlier, it was the intention of parents and grandparents that my sister and I would always be able to stand on our own 2 feet, make our own decisions, particularly, get education. I'll tell you a funny story, because they were heavy education people. However, I didn't go to college first. I went to the military first, much to my parents' chagrin. Not what was wanted, not what was supported. I mean, at all. And I remember my grandmother, who, from the old school, so to say, had this idea that if I went into the military, that somehow like I would soil myself and not be a quote unquote like marriage material type of thing, right? And I remember that was funny, and I mean, she said that, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I hear you, but I'm moving on.
Mhm.
And but after that, because that literally was my entry into the FAA, and my grandparents were alive. Well, interestingly, my grandfather actually passed right when I started my career, but they were alive. He was alive while I was going through the process of getting hired, and my grandmother as well. And my grandmother kind of reflected back on, okay, well, maybe that wasn't sound advice, after all, which I thought was really funny. But it was really this idea of be able to stand on, go for it, right? Not at the expense of others, if you will, because I certainly don't believe that you have to tear others down or destroy others in process of your journey. But there was certainly this push to go for it, like set your sights on your goals and your dreams, and to move out on them. I certainly have not always taken the straightest path, and most of us don't. And but I'm okay with that, because I believe that those decision points got me, to where I am today.
Yeah. And I think what you just said right there to cap that off was like, I'm okay with that. That's a big statement. So like not living in this state of regret or this feeling of guilt or shame that, if I did this differently, my life would have only went that direction and I would be this person. It's like, well, no, unfortunately, that's just not the way that it is. It's like you've made these decisions, where you're at today. If you don't like where you're at today, fix it, change it now, adjust the process there. But I want to go back to that moment where you decided to go into the Air Force. Bring me back. How old were you? Were you, teens, early 20s? It was like, and then what made you want to go that route against sort of the wisdom and sort of the path that others had thought for you, to start going that way?
That's a great question. I went right after high school. Part of it came down to money. So
Mm,
there was, again, a key decision point. I did get scholarship money to stay in Michigan, but I didn't want to go to Michigan at the time. I wanted to go to Tuskegee. There was no Tuskegee money. And I just thought, well, I didn't really want to stay in Michigan. And mind you, as much as I love my city, I could see what was going on. And you kind of said it earlier, I didn't want to be a statistic,
hmm,
right? I thought if I stayed around, I don't know who my friends, what we might get into, would I be drawn into some other things that maybe aren't really who I am, what position would I find myself in? So I was like, well, no money. I don't want to stay in college. So what does that become? Okay, well, in the military, it is, right? And so I had done the research, and I said, well, if I go into the Air Force, I would certainly get a trade or a skill. I thought I'd get the opportunity to travel. And at that point, I wanted to get out of Detroit. And so that really became the driver. And so I waited on delayed enlistment for about a little over a year to actually get into the Air Force.
incredible. Very cool. Okay, now that gives me some context as to that. And then you go to the Air Force for how many years, and then you get out, and then at that point you set your sights on going into the FAA and into the aviation space, more in the, it's still private sector, right? I mean, but
Well,
it's just
public.
it's
It's
public. Okay,
it's
okay, yeah.
federal government. So not quite exactly like that. Life is stranger than fiction. So I only stayed for a couple years because it wasn't for me. And so the military came out and said, hey, we have too many. This was at the time when they were doing a strength reduction. Too many numbers on the books, trying to make it a little bit smaller military. And I was a career field that was overstaffed. And so I applied, and I was able to get out. And this is going to be crazy because you just keep it real on here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The turning point for me is I was like, well, I got a great skill. What I learned as went into a technical field, electronics technician. So it's got a really solid, a solid skill. The work was fine. I was stationed out, I had a great time because I have a lot of family on the West Coast. So I enjoyed those aspects of it. There was just something about the military way of life that didn't connect for me. And I really became when I received the yearly reminder that it was time for me to go and have my female medical checkup, I was like, they're a little bit too in my business, but I just don't like it. I told you, it's a crazy thing, but that something about that just made me feel like there's too much connection here or too much something here. Maybe it was just too much in my life and not really feeling like I could like have my own personal life or own things, because the military at that point they own you, right? When you sign
Mm.
on the dotted line. And somehow that just didn't register. So I applied, I got out, and I lived in Phoenix for about a year. And I was talking to my mother on the phone, and she said, "Hey, I got a letter here from you." I was like, "Oh," and she said, "It's from the Federal Aviation Administration." I said, "You got a letter?" I said, "Well, okay, open it, read it to me." So she opens it and reads it, and they say, "Hey, we're recruiting. We're looking for people just like we're looking for people that did what you did, electronics technicians specifically. I used to work on navigational equipment in the military, and it's pretty close to a one for one match. It translated, that word translated. So we're looking for people, and we'd like to encourage you to apply." That is how it all went down.
Wow. And I like the mic drop right there. Good job. That's fantastic. It's like boom. That's how it all went down. She drops the mic. So at that point, you're what, mid-20s, like early 20s, mid-20s.
Early 20s.
Okay, so let me paint a picture for people that are listening, because I know a little bit more about you, but you just so you all know, Angela is a boss lady. She's a VP for the FAA. So this is no, so like we're talking about life experience, corporate experience. Like it's hard to find someone else sort of attitude and just demeanor that has literally, in the words of the great military, rose to the ranks, right? Even in an environment. And by the way, that's just that can reveal so many other great lessons, which I'm gonna go to here as well. But that being said, you said something a few minutes ago, Angela, where you said it just wasn't for me, and that caught my attention because today's day and age, I think a lot of people are sort of they're combing through life experiences and they're doing something that's like just something's not right, but they might stay into it. And so, do you think that there, with your hindsight looking backwards, do you think that there are ways that you learn to figure out if something just isn't for you, so that somebody else could be like, "Yeah, I'm in this job right now. It's just like it's just not for me," and then maybe what the action could be to take, or like a process to follow, so that somebody can move out of that place and go find some more peace, some more joy, or whatever it is that they might be after. Does that make sense? Question, you with me on that question?
Uh-huh. I'm with you on it. I was listening to who's the gentleman that you just had on, the gentleman with the deep six-figure salary who walked away from his big career, right?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because at that time, I was young, unmarried, didn't have any kids. And that is one of those moments where I was just true to myself and didn't do a lot of second guessing, right? It was just like, yeah, I don't see myself in this. It's not going to be a career for me. I want to move on. That is an instance where I was just given an opportunity and I took it,
Hmm.
right? Had they not actively, they being the military, DOD, actively, if they were not actively looking for a strength reduction, I would have stayed, right? Because I'd signed on the line and I made this commitment. And so I just would have, as they say, I would have powered through. I would have stayed on because I was unhappy. I was not unhappy. However, when that opportunity fell in my lap and I just reflected and said, well, I'm not unhappy, but I'm not particularly fulfilled, or And I remember having these conversations and then, just kind of talking to family, friends, and because people are like, well, what are you going to do when you get out? I don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I'm young. And so I did say, well, I can always get out and go to school. That was the one thing, because I did make investment in the military into the GI Bill. So I knew that I had money for school. So I would just say, number one is being honest, or honestly assessing opportunities that present themselves. Okay, that was one piece there to just kind of say, well, here's a chance. I can just cut ties, nothing else. I'm done and can move on. So that would be one piece. When I think about other junctures along the way where I was true to myself, it always really comes down to, it's a craziness. It's just this belief that somehow it's going to be okay for me and I could take this step. An example, what I didn't say in this is I'm a breast cancer survivor. The year after my treatment ended, I was living in Virginia. And at the time, I was a supervisor, a lot of employees, 24-hour facility. I was exhausted after treatment. And for me, just the amount of energy, what I give of myself to my employees, is just a lot. I just didn't have it to give. And I was like, if I stay in this job, I'm not going to really be able to be who I am and connect with people in the way that I normally do, because I'm tired and I just want to go home. So I called old boss in Michigan. I said, hey, I'm thinking about stepping down from this role. I just finished with, I just finished with my treatment. Everyone knew, that had gone through this. I'm really tired. I want to come home. I want to be by family, right? That's that grounding, the values, no place like home. For me, literally, it is no place like home. And so I said, so, do you have anything open? And he says to me, well, I wish you would have called me earlier, because I just filled a position. So I don't really have anything at the moment. And my response to him was, well, okay, you do understand though, that if this is meant to be, that the door is going to open, right? I was back there in 6 months. So it's what did I say? No might mean no for now, or no, not like this. And so sometimes you just have to speak and stand on those things that you believe. In that moment, I believed that I was going home. I didn't know how it was going to happen, and it wasn't my responsibility to figure all of that out. But I certainly stood on that, and things just opened right on up, that I was able and slid right in a job like I wanted to. I stepped down, and in that moment when I stepped down, I went back to to a position I had previously. I had time on my hands. I finished my undergrad and started towards grad school. So see, things, it's sometimes it's just knowing that it's going to work out without seeing all of the pieces. Now, I do try to run every scenario I possibly can. Of course, it's always a scenario you didn't think of, and that plays out. And so I thought about all that, because at the time I was married and with a child, right? And we had just gone through this kind of traumatic thing of me being ill. And I'm like, yeah, I want to step down. And the other thing was being able to speak your truth, right? I had been a supervisor and said, I am going to step down, which is going to be less money, lesser of a position, and owning that with people. I had to sit down and talk to my current manager or then manager and say, I'm stepping down. Here's why. I need you to support me, right? You have to ask for what you want. I need you to support me on this. I am telling you, I have to do this for me, and I don't have it in me to give what I normally give. And that, I think it was the standing on what would be the reaching out and asking to be supported, I think lined all of those things up in the background. So I don't so these are things as we're talking about it in pretty much how I have evolved and
Mm,
how I approach things in what I do. Being unafraid to say what it is that you would like to do, you know, being prepared when it arises to really step into it. Because even in the getting out of the military, I called my cousin who lived in
mm,
Phoenix and said, "Hey, I'm gonna get out the military. Don't quite want to go back to Michigan. I'm in California. Can't really live here. Do you think you could give me a bridge to kind of figure out what I want to do? You know, I want to go to school and blah blah." Again, I had made the decision I was getting out. Then I had reached out and said, "Hey, can you help me? Is there some support, a bridge, or something like that?" And I don't know that I had really thought about those things like that, but the way you pose the question, those are, I think, a couple things to helping people. And it's probably no different even now. I'm in my 50s to say, um, or if I was talking to a friend of mine, that same thing. What are you trying to do, right? And
yeah.
understanding why you want to do, what are there opportunities that exist to do that, or do you need to go and create something?
Hmm.
And who's your network? Like, are there people you can reach out to talk to about, support you, and those kinds of things? I think those are probably some key things when we talk about making a transition, because
Yeah.
both of those happen to be transition stories.
Yeah. Outstanding frame of, outlining it is from how you lived it. I think that's a pretty incredible process there. And I think the theme that I caught onto there was also like faith, belief, going out and sort of getting by asking, don't be afraid to ask. Um, and you said something like I like to go back to this, like the ground zeros of things. Like when you realize you have something like breast cancer, like, and I'm saying this because I have been a hypochondriac to some extent in events where I found out my health wasn't okay, and my anxiety and my panic went through the roof. And this, believe it or not, I actually had like a couple instances where it was in the middle of me, even in my sober years, which is 6 years now, to which I have become more clear-headed and got my life on track, and then still with the health thing, freaked out. Right, so it's like, whoa, that's not going to help me. So for you, outside of the things you just mentioned, were there other elements within that gave you strength? And did you have this sort of inner self-talk to yourself about, I'm going to make this? Or what were some of like the actual reactions that you had, like at the moment and through that process where you're fighting, you're getting stronger, you have to beat this thing in order for your life to continue to grow and get better? People have real life traumas every day. Something happens every day. That's how life is. Could be health, could be somebody else, could be job based, it could be many different things. But in that moment, what was your approach? So that if somebody's experiencing that in their own life, regardless of what it is, they know that through your word, it's like, wow, okay, there's hope here. I'm gonna make this work. Like, because that is a tough place to be, where you're like, well, I got breast cancer. Now what?
Oh, oh my gosh. I was terrified, right? And I'm coming home to my then third grader, trying to explain
Mm,
this. And his question, of course, is, are you going to live? And
mm,
I said, well, here's what I believe. I believe that I have the right set of, medical team around me, and I'm going to do everything that I need to do. So I'm going to beat it. For me, one of the things I think it is, it's one of the ways I operate when I'm faced crisis, panic, sheer terror, anything. I go do a bunch of research, right?
mm.
I mean, I got breast cancer. Let me tell you something, books start flowing in there. Google. I mean, it was just so I do try to educate myself about whatever it is that I'm going to face. Certainly, you can't educate yourself out of sheer terror, because sometimes doing a whole lot of reading can make the terror even worse.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And so, but it was okay. Let me understand. What am I dealing with? what is out there. So I read, looked at all these statistics. I mean, I caught it early. It was a fairly large mass, but it was caught early. So statistically, things were good. Still, I had a tremendous amount of terror, fear. Really, the first thing I had to do, because I couldn't sleep, was, believe it or not, old-fashioned sleeping pill. Now, I'm not telling people to go and necessarily, but what I am going to say is knowing when you need help, right? This is a situation where I'm stressed out, terror, anxiety. I can't sleep. You can't heal yourself. You're not prepared to deal with the situation. You can't wrap your arms around your family. So sometimes in some situations, you take the medicine, right? And I'm not a
Yep.
pill type of, I don't want to take the medicine, but sometimes you have to take the medicines just so you can even get your mind right, so that you can even think. Again, this was a situation for me of active faith, right? And so the active faith was the active prayer. It was the my church family around me, right? The active engagement of acknowledge what is. That was a turning point in my life because I am very private, and it would have been very easy for me to remain quiet and then keep this to myself, which is how I've done a lot of things. And this, for whatever that moment became about, how do I talk about this with others in a way that was empowering for me? What it's interesting, because in the moment where I stopped owning it and put it out there to say, hey, this is what's going on, I found myself having to help everyone else get through my, get through my thing.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
power in talking about the actively talking about it, not woe is me, because it was, for me, it was never woe is me, never I'm going to die, never that, but the power in saying, okay, hey, this is what's going on, right? Let's be aware. And I think what that did is it brought I had a lot of support around me, right? That people that came out of the woodwork. I told a lady last year, she didn't even remember that during that time, I just got a big box in the mail. It was a big pink box. It was filled teddy bears, prayers, candy, trinkets, all of this outpouring of love. That moment of telling someone and sharing a story, it reaffirmed my belief in humanity, right? Because you turn on the news, you stream anything, the world is just, it's going to hell in a handbasket. But that moment was, wow, people are willing to connect, people are willing to share, people are willing to help, to speak life over situations. And so it's crazy, but it was that, actively doing that. I went back to writing also.
Wow.
So it was getting your thoughts down on paper. It was partly cathartic, I think. Um, and it also, that experience made me reflect on how I was living my life, right? Some of the reason also why the step down is because I had always been so career driven. And part of that is back to this, hey, I'm a Black child from Detroit. I don't want to be this statistic, right? Hey, parents said you can go and get out there, make it happen. And so I was always just driven, like I'm like hard charging. And I said, okay, I need to slow down and do something different. And so that was the, part of the stepping down, refocusing at work, less stressful at work, pouring into myself with the schooling and education. And it was a pivotal year also for the relationship with my son, because I've always been a career mom. That year, that whole third grade, though I was really sick, it was walking him to the bus station every morning, to the bus stop, and then picking him up most days that I could. It was an experience and a connection that I hadn't had with him like that, because I'd always been, career. So I don't know if that helps somebody out there, but this is, you know, and even reflecting on it and how those experiences even helped me get through the experience. Hadn't thought about them in this way.
Yeah, no, it's I have the chills. I always put my arms, like, I wish you could see that. I have a lot of hair in my arm and it's standing up right now, but it's kind of like blending in with my shirt. But very much appreciated with what you just shared. And I think, you know, one of the things that I caught in there is where you were saying you were surrounded by all these people and you were end up having to figure out how to help them. I think what you realized was how much of a leader and how strong you really were, even in your sort of sickness, to be there for them because they were falling apart. It's a strange, you know, phenomenon how that works, right? It's like they're okay, healthy, but they're like, oh my God, it's you know, it's the end of the world, and you're like, we're gonna be okay. Yeah, just be there for me. And so you end up lifting them up. But it's evident that that's you because that's what you've sort of clearly accomplished in your life, even being focused and driven on the professional side. Angela, let me ask you a question about that because I do think that with your professional endeavors and having reached a, you know, a certain level of hierarchy that, you know, women, men would aspire to, I think that a lot of people are in the workforce, quote unquote, in jobs. How can somebody, and all your years of experience of leading people and giving so much to people, how can somebody that is on the job side be better in their position and be a better representative of their position to their leaders, their supervisors, their managers? How can they take that from all the times you've spent with so many people that you know, have made you proud or have, you know, sort of risen through the ranks? Like, what can they do to be more where they're at and serve that position at a higher level?
That is I love the way you framed that question because the answer is in the question itself.
Hmm.
It is in the process. We are all on this journey, and most of us want to, you know, reach the next level, but it can't be at the expense of where you are today.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times we are so focused on what the next place could or should be that we don't give where we are, right?
Hmm.
And
Listen
it's
up, folks. That was a good one.
yeah, it's like I'm like it's never about the title. And I know people say, okay, yeah, your title is vice president. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you pretty much how I am as a vice president is how I was when I was a staffer working in the organization. What I understood even then was how to have influence and really build relationships, having networks of people that you can, you know, talk to and get things done. Um, be, you know, you hear it and all the time, but people don't really believe that you just literally have to lead from where you are. You don't wait until you have the title.
Hmm.
You find the ways that you can lead. Here's an example. I mean, if you want to lead in the spot that you're in, do the work and be a person that people knows is you're a getter done. You know, you operate from a place of integrity. You make yourself available if that person calls you and say, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you share this with me? I like to bounce an idea off of you, right? Talk to. So if you position yourself as someone can really see you're a go-to kind of person, that is a form of leading from where you are. You could be more of where you are by pulling in other stakeholders. Like whatever work you're doing, you touch other people. I don't care if you just think you're sitting there and all you do is you read this piece of paper and you stamp it and it's going somewhere, right? There's a touch point where it's going. What do you have a relationship with that touch point? Is there connectivity? Do you understand how your role fits in the greater good, right? If you're saying you want to take on another position, which most of the time is about more responsibility, do you even understand how what you're doing today sort of supports the much larger kind of organization? And so for me, along the way, I've had moments, and I remember this as a young technician, and it stood out. We were building a new facility, right? A new FAA facility. And I volunteered to take on this role as a lead, and it was a position that was generally held for an engineer.
Mm.
I'm not an engineer. Remember, I said I was an electronics technician, but I raised my hand. Again, the belief, right? Now, I had done the things I needed to do to have the technical capability to do it. But I raised my hand and said, I can do it, right? And that was a pivotal moment because I had stepped into this role, if you will, that generally was for an engineer. And I was the lead on this work with all these engineers. It wasn't a promotion. I just volunteered, hey, I'll do this. It didn't come with any additional money. Did I know all the people I was going to be working with on this team? I did not. So, but those things did not stand. They didn't stand in my way because what I just knew is like, okay, well, if I don't know how to do this, I'm gonna reach out and ask somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think those have been some of the things that have helped me in my career is the willingness to say I don't know and to ask a question. I laugh all the time. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't have to be the expert to be in the role.
Mm.
And I think that helps people. I think there's a connection point to people when they say, okay, she's in that role, but she's not pretending that she has all the answers, right? She is willing to reach out to others that have, that have the answers, or willing to bring others in. And along the way, I think I just naturally did that, I think it started out naturally doing it. And at this point in this role, it is very intentional, right? Of recognizing there is no way I can have all the answers to everything that I do, but who has the answers and who can I reach out to? So I think sometimes those are things that stand in our way is we're unwilling to admit when we don't know something and we're uncomfortable um, reaching out to others, or we're so with our head down on what it is that we're doing that we really don't look up and sort of survey and understand how we fit and who we can connect with. You can do that in any position that you have, and I would offer if you learn to do that effectively, it helps you along the way.
Yeah. And do you think, yeah, it's very, very, I love it. With that, do you think that it's important? So it's almost like you're creating a personal culture that you work within, regardless of what you're doing. Let's try to create a scenario here. A lot of people sort of parade through life. I don't want to say always unclear. I think people, have a level of it, but maybe not fully clear, like where they want to go, what they want to create, who they want to be. It's like at work, it's like I'm just doing it because I have to, because I've got a job, it pays the bills, it takes care of my family. Understand it. For what you're talking about, it's almost like there's two situations. One is the person that shows up and they don't, regardless of where they're at, they are going to be the best they can be, which maybe a natural evolution happens and they end up leading something. Or two, there's somebody that goes there, but they know what they want. And because of that, they perform that way. And so I guess my question is do you think that there is a difference between the somebody that like knows what they want and they act that way versus the person that just shows up every day and is just kind of going through the motions? Or should both people always be behaving that way? And then almost like the laws will reward you for that. Do you see where I'm going? So I guess I probably asked you like 5 questions right there because I'm really good at that part, asking a lot of questions in one question. So don't get overwhelmed. I'll simple it up for you. Is it important to know what you're going for in the same token, in your opinion, what you want, and then within that to perform the way that you said, to lead where you're at from where you are type of thing?
I think it is. So I think there's one thing that we all have to accept. Those of us that are hard charge and driving A-type personalities, everyone doesn't want to move ahead, and that's fine. What I have learned is, you have the people that want to move ahead, which is fantastic, and you have the people who love what they do today. They come in, they do their job, they don't want to move ahead. They just want to work 9 to 5, and they want to go home. And there are those people who believe and they put in an honest day's work for an honest day's pay.
Yep.
I appreciate and love and love those people and understand the value of having those people because they're the backbone of the organization, right?
Sure. Yep.
There's a set of people that, as you describe, they're going through the motions. They're they're in, they fell into roles, they do it, maybe they're good at it, um, and they're okay, where they are, they're dependable, right? So you have the, hey, I'm dependable, I'm in it, you ask me to do anything, I love it, I'm all for it backbone. And then you have the, it's a job, I don't love it, but I come in, I do it. I'm not going to volunteer for anything else, and and they're okay. I think, and then they're the, hey, I'm gonna do this and learn what I can, and I'm making connections, and I'm looking and saying, hey, I want to go here, and I want to go do this, and want to go do that. I think all of those people have a responsibility to be the best that they can in the role that they inhabit. You were hired, or you're doing a certain particular role or particular job. Certainly, hopefully, it's something that the company or organization needs. And so, while you're in that role, I think you have to be in the role fully, right? And fully looks like you, regardless of whether you want to get ahead or not, you understand how your role or job fits in with everything else. You understand who the stakeholders are. You're comfortable when something new comes in saying, hey, can you, help me? You ask questions and all of those things. I think that it should be the same no matter what it is that you're doing. What I would add to the person who is wanting to move ahead is to understand your why, that you want to take this next role, right? What is it about? Because sometimes I think we get caught in, I need to take the next role because it's what's expected, or it's just what comes next.
Hmm.
And I think you really need to understand, well, okay, that historically may come next, but is that a right fit for you? And do you have some things that you can bring to the role? Because that's the other thing I believe, even in your, moving forward, or for me, I thought about, okay, if I take this next role, here's what I bring to the table. I know this, and this, so I can get in and hit the ground running. I don't know these things, so this is what I'm going to get from this role, right? So I can continue to grow, or sort of fulfill myself. So you should be showing up playing full out.
Yeah.
Period.
That's just it. Period. I
Period.
like that. With a dot. Period. Dot.
Yeah.
I dig it. Um, I got a couple more questions for you because time goes by so fast with these. It's just like you blink your eye and you're already at almost an hour mark. But a couple more questions for you, and then we'll send you back on to doing your dutiful leadership and continuing to serve the world in a big way. But because you're a leader of within an organization, I mean, clearly a very well-known organization at that, and you're a leader of yourself. Question becomes, what advice do you have for anyone listening right now to do a better job of leading themselves? Like, what can one do to lead themselves to live a better life, receive more of what they want, continue to, evolve, not stay stagnant? You probably have a really good answer for this. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it.
That's the hard work, what you're talking about.
Uh,
That's the hard work, because you can't lead yourself if you don't know yourself.
hmm.
That's
That timing of that, I will spit up my drink, folks. I don't know if you guys saw that. That was so good. I almost threw up my water while I was drinking right there. You guys got to go look.
do not throw up your
You
water.
got to go look at that one on YouTube, because that one's on camera right there. That was that was good.
It's, I mean, it really comes down to really understanding who you are, and we're constantly evolving, so you never just get there, right? Let me give you an example. Back to the whole breast cancer. Last year, I had a scare, like they thought that was going to be my life again, and I was like, whoa, sheer terror. Even though it was terror, but I was like, okay, Husa, let me, I immediately, though, I was back to that same place, because I was in my early 30s, right? I just that quickly, I went back to that same place of hearing it for the first time, and that terror and all of that. true to form, I got to the reflection, and I was really reflecting on what I learned the first time and how I made some first time about me, about what's important, taking time out for myself, making sure that I, was enjoying life. Was I pouring into those relationships that was important to me? All those things was like the first go around. So last year, we're in the middle of COVID. Bam, I get hit with that, and I'm like, okay, time for reflection here. What's going on, right? How am I living my life? What am I? And I was like, okay, I'm doing a check here, check here, check here. Not doing so good on commitment to working out. To okay, let me, and back to being driven in career. Am I enjoying life? Right? These two check marks that I said, I'm actually. So though I know myself and say you have to know yourself, and I also said you're always changing. I'd never been particularly, I would not have called myself athletic, not necessarily a person who loved to work out and all of that. In that moment, I made a decision to show up differently. And it started with walking. It's funny, a friend of mine, hey, she is a huge athlete, and she said, hey, I got this little 30-day challenge thing. You got a 30-day challenge, and you had to work out. Was it 4 days a week, 15 minutes a day? I said, I can do that for 30 for 1 month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can do it. And I got out and I started walking. Like, it's just 15 minutes a day. I'm like, okay, well, I can do this. I can get out, I can walk. And I started saying to myself, okay, well, this has never been you, but it can be you, right? You can change. So the knowing yourself is saying, okay, had never been me. It got boring to me, right? That's why I could never consistently work out, because things got boring. So I said, okay, Angela, you need a lot of different stimuli. So what are you going to do? Okay, you're going to go out and walk. I will walk with my girlfriend on the weekends. She showed me some great spots in and around the DMV, which is, DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And okay, well, I need some other things. I got on YouTube. I looked around and found some different YouTubers, just YouTubers that were doing different kinds of things. You can work out at home. Okay, I got the video, the YouTube. I was listening to them doing a walk run, like walk a mile, run a mile, So I knew that that's not who I had always been, but I decided I wanted to be in a different place. I understood what my challenges had been all along, getting bored and all of that, and knew I needed to have stimuli. So I had to go find several different YouTubers and different types of exercise to keep me interested, to keep me engaged. It works, because I'm still doing the working out. Now it's gotten cold out. And so now I want to do a little bit of pivoting and saying, okay, maybe I need to hit the gym a little bit more, even though I'm not a big gym person, but it's cold. So how can I add? It comes down to knowing myself, which is about, I journal. Okay. And I do like art journaling. So I like to express feelings, and I'm not even an artist, but hey, it doesn't even matter. So I've done a lot of personal development, self-help type of stuff that I read, and I do the exercises, and then I reflect because I have a close circle of people who I value. I ask for feedback, like, hey, how am I showing up?
That's right.
I do that at work. Even if I am having a performance discussion with a one of my directors, and talking to them, or even when I was a director and the people under me, and just kind of, I talk about what I was experiencing with them. And then I'm like, okay, and how are you experiencing me as your leader? Am I supportive? Am I showing up? Do you find, do you feel value? Do matter, and all of that, So I seek feedback from those right around me. I know myself because I've had Gorgeous to have some great coaches to actually coach me, personal coaching, executive coaching to really help me along the way. And so I've taken in a lot of information about myself.
Mm.
And because I myself pretty well. And I mean, I laugh and I tell it to people, I'm like, yeah, I know. I understand how I'm showing up, and I can be very intense at times. And if I feel like I'm being a little bit too intense, I'm watching the person's body language. I'm like, okay, let me slow it down. Kind of let me step back because I'm overwhelming them. They're not hearing my message. So I've learned to take cues from the people around me, right? That's part of
That's right.
effective communication,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So all of those things have helped me really to know myself. And as much as I know myself, my buttons still get pushed sometimes, and there are times that I reflect and say, oof, maybe not the way I would have liked to show up, so what can I learn about that? So I do believe in continual, it's funny, we do continued process improvement at work, but I try to evolve. And part of that is because I just had this deeply held belief that as a leader, I am a leader of people, and I don't believe that there's much more higher charge than that, right?
Right.
You are leading people.
Yep.
I have got to constantly be evolving and growing myself because I'm pouring into other people. And if you're not constantly evolving, I think you really get stagnant. And what people want to align themselves with stagnant leaders?
No. Oh, it's like a repellent, believe it or not. I know that because I've been around them. Like you said, you're like, this isn't where I belong. So on our side, as a former employee, you're spot on with that. I mean, you say it very well. I mean, look, I know that there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people out there that have been affected by your leadership, because that's just the way it works, right? When you own a position like that, and it's neat. It's like sometimes we get so caught up in the daily activities that we forget to take a step back. I know you don't, but I'm saying just people listening realize it's like whether you're doing it on a platform like this or you're doing it in an actual environment of work, you're still helping people. I bet you people are walking away and say, you know what? Angela was a great leader. Man, that woman taught me so much. Wow, that was incredible. And that one thing is what makes a difference. And that is why I wanted to get you on this podcast, so that you can do that, just a little bit more of what you're already doing. See, it's funny how that some people are so good at it and what they know, and then it's like, come over here and share a little bit. It's like, all right, we're gonna have some fun negotiating this one together. That's good. But listen, I'm so happy that we did this. You have inspired me. You've taught me some things here, and I knew you would. We set people up for coming back again, so I'm sure we'll do another one at the end where they on camera, they're like, yeah, I'll do it again, and they can't walk out of it. So we'll just have to figure out the timing on that. But there's always so much more that can be discussed, and just because it's life, and I think that's where we really help people. So before I let you go, I know that you didn't come on here looking to do you weren't selling anything, or maybe you are, but I'm totally okay with that. Maybe people can find you for something, but she's shaking her head. No. So don't worry about that. Then, as I say, people can send you, Instagrams, Facebooks, emails, websites, none of that stuff. If you have it, great. Tell me.
I do.
Okay.
They can, so I'm following you on LinkedIn. So if you're interested in the professional type stuff that's going on, what's going on in aviation and those kinds of things, you can find my stuff there. If you're interested, not in aviation, but you're just interested in like, okay, what's Angela McCullough doing and up to, you can always find me at Angela Lifestylist on my Instagram page. So
Love it.
you check me out there.
Boom.
So,
Is that Angela Lifestyle or Lifestyles?
Lifestylist.
Lifestyle list.
Yes, Lifestylist.
STYLIST.
Yes.
Got it. Yo, make sure you catch that little special spelling there. That's exciting. Yeah, see, I'm gonna have to go give you some follow too, because I ain't following you. See, that's how we do that here.
Hey.
Yeah, come on now. Fantastic. All right. Well, that's going to be a lot of fun. And then, hey, one more question for you. I'm sure you've heard it from me asking some of the other folks. I always ask, hey, what does always on the grow mean to you?
Oh, you know what? It's absolutely about constantly, it's the constant evolution of my personal self. For me, you've heard me say it throughout this, I give so much to others. And so the more that I grow, the more that I have to share.
Mm, amen. Look at that. Perfectly said. Well, listen, from my heart to yours, nothing but love. See the pink right there? It's like that that special color that insinuates just that appreciation, right? I think that's kind of what it embodies there. So I believe it or not, I got pink balloons around my place right now. You can't see them because they're not on camera, but they're floating all over the place. Thankfully, I have a wonderful lady that decided to hang those up and surprise me when I got back from Florida the other day. So
Oh,
feeling good. Yeah. It's an
nice.
awesome thing. Yep. All
Hey
right.
man,
Well,
can
listen.
I say something? I know
Yeah.
you want to wrap it up.
Go ahead.
I just want to thank you because I've listened to a few of the guests that you have on. I think this is some fantastic work that you're doing, just allowing people to share their experiences, share their lives in the hope that it touches other people. We need more of that in the world, absolutely. So thank you for this platform and allowing me to be here.
Listen, you said something earlier, goosebumps again, and thank you for that. I really appreciate that. It means a lot from you. I look up to you for what you've accomplished. I always look up to wisdom. You know, when you live more life, there's just reality. It's like you are much wiser than I am, so I'm learning a ton. Um, you said to speak and stand up earlier, a long time ago in this conversation, which seems like, almost 40 minutes ago. It seems like forever ago now, but you said speak and stand up. And that struck a chord with me because that's really what it's about. Speak and stand up on your own 2 feet type of thing. But my goal here is to give people the platform, and I just help provide it for them, and they can go out and they can share their stories. They can open up, because if I can facilitate that, that's a really awesome feeling, right? And there are wonderful people like you that might not have seen themselves doing that just yet. So there's a little bit, and that's where I think I'll pop in and I'll help wrestle with you and just say, look, just give it a shot, see how it feels. And I always joke at the end, everybody's always addicted. They probably want to go do 1,000 more because it felt so good, right? So it's just getting them to that point to come out here and create. But I appreciate that, and you, and let's keep making magic. Let's see how many other people we can help and continue to change the world, because we're definitely doing it. High
Woo!
five.
High
Boom,
five.
baby. All right,
Boom.
superstar. You go out, have a great rest of your day over there on the East Coast, and we'll be in touch here shortly.
All right.
Thanks.
Sounds good.
You're the
Bye-bye.
best, Angela. Bye bye.